Good evening. My name is Antonia Johnson, and the topic that I chose for my oral presentation is homeless pregnant women in America. Being homeless is pretty much considered someone who lives from home to home. They do not have their own stable housing. They may reside in shelters or they may be living on the streets. Um, Women who become homeless, a large percentage amount of them are usually women who are fleeing a domestic violence situation. Um, may also be a young woman who is leaving her home due to sexual or physical abuse. There also may be a situation as far as there may be problems in the home, and this young woman had to leave her home or was kicked out of her own home. There could be a situation of eviction, someone who already is pretty much poor and they're unable to pay for their rent, so they're pretty much evicted and have to reside in a shelter. Another population are also women who have an undiagnosed mental illness or have a diagnosed mental illness. However, they're not able to pretty much maintain by continuing to take their medication, or someone who is a substance abuser. These are typically the women that we see who become homeless and pregnant. There are many risk factors involved for homeless pregnant women. One of the many risk factors are that these women do not have access to appropriate diet. So pretty much they have a poor nutrition, their intake of food. They do not have healthy foods. They may not be eating fruits and vegetables. They have to eat whatever is available for them. So therefore they put their unborn child at risk for developing other developmental disabilities later on in life. Another risk factor is that just being homeless in itself, someone who's homeless, the stress level is much higher. They may not know where they're going to sleep at night, if the shelter is going to have enough room for them. If they also have other children with them, they have to worry about taking care of those other children. If they're when a woman is pregnant and homeless, she is could be easily prime target and become a victim of violence and abuse. Also, if a woman has a mental health illness, not being able to take her medication, so therefore she may be involved in other behaviors, which therefore puts herself and her child at risk. Also, many homeless women they do not have full access to prenatal care. It may be available, but it's very limited. Some do not want to go to prenatal care, not because they don't care for their child, but because they fear the stereotypes of someone who is homeless. They may appear a little different. They're afraid that the healthcare providers may look down upon them, talk to them very differently. This is a concern why they normally do not seek out prenatal care. And a lot of times it's just a lack of being educated on how important prenatal care is for the development of the child. So they may not see it as something very important. They may only want to get help if there's something physically wrong, and they notice that and they feel like they need to actually go get that help at that time. But a lot of these women, when they do give birth to their unborn child, or when they do go and seek help towards the seventh or eighth or ninth month, they normally have many problems such as high blood pressure, diabetes. Some have ongoing vaginal bleeding. They also have problems with having sexually transmitted diseases. Um, and as a result of all these medical chronic problems that these women have, and sometimes they're not aware of these problems until they go to the doctor or to the hospital. Their child could be born with low birth weight. Some of the babies are born premature. Some are born dead, pretty much. And also, there are situations where the child will later on have problems, developmental problems in the future, as far as having behavioral problems and just also chronic medical problems. I'm going to also talk a little bit more about the risk factors for the unborn child. The stress of the mom can be very traumatic for these babies and pretty much cause developmental disability in the child. There's also a high increased rate of miscarriages. Some we don't know how many because of this population. It's so hard to get a lot of documented information because they're in and out of shelters. They're not in stable homes, but there's definitely a high rate of miscarriages. And there's also another risk factor for the mom and the child. So if this mom decides that she wants to keep her child and she's homeless, she has to worry about once she gives birth to this child, is she going to have housing? And if she doesn't have housing, the risk of her child being taken from her at that point. So that's a huge problem because there's not that many services available for these women. So a lot of times they may give birth and they may give their child to their family member. If they do have a family member who's willing to take care of this child, some women are forced to give their child up for adoption. Some women are forced to put their child in foster care. So these are a huge factor that these mothers have to face when they're carrying their child if they don't have housing before the child is born. I'm going to have you watch a little short video that I found on YouTube. It's a program by the JOPA Outreach Program. They pretty much provide a bunch of volunteers who provide support. They provide food and clothing and tents to families or individuals who are homeless. In this particular video, there's a young girl. Her name is Heather. She's 8 months pregnant and she's homeless. So please take the time and just view that, and I'll return in a second. Thank you.
My name is Heather and I'm 23 years old. I've actually been in Des Moines for probably about a year now. Kind of had a falling out with the family, and I ended up at the shelter and was at the shelter for like 3 months, and been just bounced from place to place since then. I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm having a little boy. Gonna name him Trevor, and it's been quite the experience. There have been days that it's been harder than others, but in the long run, it's all gonna be worth it. Usually, I try and get my vegetables and pizzas and like pizzas and fruits. I'll eat a lot more canned fruits and canned veggies out here, and we go through a lot of soup. I'm gonna apply for Section 8, but if it comes down to it, I'm gonna go stay with my mom for a short while until I heal up, and my aunt will take temporary custody until I can get on my feet and get my housing. I use a trolley to go to the library. I go to 701, or just to get downtown to get on the bus for my appointments and stuff. The worst thing about being pregnant and homeless is the stress. You got a little more weight to carry, and you know, there are days that are a little more uncomfortable. I mean, like I said, it's a day-by-day thing, and it's not easy. For the longest time, we had our little pup tent, and we needed one, and it took a little while, but we were finally able to get that tent, and that's a tent we still have set up back there. The door, the zipper doesn't work or nothing now, but I mean, we've had that tent for a good 4.5 months now, and probably the nights when it's cold and rainy is really what's hardest for me. I mean, because it's just sometimes just a little uncomfortable. I mean, we stay dry, but it being cold doesn't really help. Some days I just want to give up, you know. I don't know. I mean, my mom right now, she can't handle the financial strain because my dad just passed, and so I really don't have a lot of options, but there are just some days I want to call it quits. With the tents, the blankets, and supplies that you guys send out, that does help, and you know, coming out, you know, the nurses come out and check on us and everything, make sure we're doing all right. And then being able to call and let you guys know what we need, that does help. I mean, you guys really make the effort to help us out when you've got what we need. it feels great to know that there are really people out there that really do care. I mean, and that they're not just, you know, coming out, I mean, just because, you know, they feel they're obligated to, and they're willing to take the time out even just to sit there and talk to us. I've been out here long enough to know that, I mean, sometimes you do what you got to do, and it's hard, but, you know, I got to, you know, Dad wouldn't want me to stress out too much. I got to think of the baby, and that's what Dad would want, so.
As you can see, Heather represents a large population of homeless pregnant women in America. Heather had to leave her home due to family problems and continues to struggle with not knowing what's going to happen once she gives birth to her baby. Heather's situation is like many other women who are homeless and pregnant. The next video that you're going to watch is by Alex Suarez. He advocates for the rights of homeless people in America. There's a young lady by the name of Angela who you're going to meet. Angela was evicted from her home due to not being able to pay her rent and going through a life crisis. She has a mental health diagnosis and was in a psychiatric placement for some time. She's about to give birth to her child and fears that if she does not have housing by the time she gives birth to her child, her child will be taken away from her.
I do a lot of filming, and you are
Angela Montero.
Hello, Angela Montero. And you were just telling me a story about your experience with the shelters and where you are in life.
Yeah, as a pregnant woman in a shelter, how are you being treated?
I'm being treated very well. The people are very friendly. The people are nice. They're compassionate. They're understanding. I haven't had an issue with that at all.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. I hear many of the opposites from other friends of mine who are in homeless shelters. But you have particular issues because you just got. What happened?
I was evicted from Boston Housing about a year ago for non-payment of rent. That's it. And because I was evicted, I was going through a major depression and a psychiatric breakdown. And because I was evicted, I'm ineligible for emergency shelter for 3 years. And I'm now 6 months pregnant with my son. If I don't get into a not-for-profit shelter by the time my son is born, my son will be taken by the state.
And when is your son supposed to be born?
April 1st, 2013.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, we are hoping that the results of some of what we're doing here is going to change that and that you will get what you need.
I'm hoping for that also.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Angela. Good luck.
You're welcome.
Angela's situation is a very sad situation, just like all the other stories. Angela wants to do right by her child and will be able to do right by her child if she was provided with the right support. But just like this population of homeless pregnant women, this population is so underserved that there is not enough support available to address all the issues pertaining to this population. So Angela is faced with the fact that she might have her child grow up in foster care, and as a result of that, her mental health illness may also deepen and become worse as far as her being depressed because she's not able to provide for her child because of the lack of support. And the last video that I'm going to have you guys watch is a video on YouTube that I also found with WIOS News 13. It talks about a young woman who, and this is a little better situation, who is a victim of domestic violence. So at that point she had to leave her home because she was escaping domestic violence. And as you will listen in the story, this was an ongoing situation that she was facing for a very long time in her life. But luckily, due to the Steadfast House program, they were able to come in and help her and provide her with housing for her and her child so that she could remain to be in her child's life.
Down in the Asheville area, but it skyrocketed in one segment of the population. News 13's John Lee joins us. John, one woman's Christmas miracle puts a face on the growing problem.
The number of homeless women and children jumped in the past 5 years, but a newborn named Eli offers hope in what seems like a hopeless situation.
But we're happy and healthy.
It's hard to believe that something so beautiful,
oh gosh, he eats like a grown man,
could come from circumstances so ugly.
A month ago, I didn't have anything but the shirt on my back. You face a lot of hardships. Sometimes a lot of things are out of your control. I mean, we all have choices, and there are consequences to some choices we make.
Nicole Goodlett is beaming now with her 4-week-old Eli.
My little angel.
But before she gave birth to that angel, Nicole says she went through pure hell.
I've previously been a domestic violence victim in a relationship for 7 years.
Nicole was homeless during much of her pregnancy. She cleaned rooms at a local hotel by day, but couldn't afford a place to stay at night.
Various places, just outside, parks, under a bridge. I remember I slept in a car one night because it was so cold out.
Eventually, the ABCCM Steadfast House took her in just weeks before Nicole gave birth. Director Mary Scudlow says the number of homeless women has almost quadrupled, now 26%. Around the world, 1.6 million children are homeless.
There is no way that we could let a woman who was pregnant and due to be delivered in 2 weeks be out on the streets. And so we pulled them in, and they've been a blessing to us.
Eli is also a blessing for Nicole, especially considering she's lost a child before, a little girl.
I was beaten when I was pregnant with the child. When the child was born, she had severe problems, and she died as a result of her injuries.
At Steadfast House, Nicole finds new life.
All right, little fella.
Knowing every night in the cold was worth it for a chance to be Eli's mom.
Bless you.
And this weekend, Nicole and Eli will play the roles of Mary and baby Jesus in Return to Bethlehem at Gross United Methodist. She says after hiding in plain sight for so long, it's great to be part of such a public show.
As you could see in this story, definitely a much better happy ending because this mom was supported and was able to have housing for her and her newborn child, and will continue to hopefully have support and get her own housing eventually. But this is definitely a story that we see. Domestic violence and women who are victims of domestic violence are the highest growing rate of women who become homeless and pregnant. This woman was pregnant before, and due to domestic violence, her baby died as a result of being abused by her husband. I will provide you with some statistical information. Pregnancy rates among young women who are homeless are much higher than those who live in poverty and low income in the United States. Almost half of pregnant women who are homeless have been pregnant before, and about 1/5 report never seeing their child after giving birth. It's also estimated by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services shows that between 6% and 22% of young women are homeless and may be pregnant. The researchers from the University of California found that women who have reported higher stress levels and anxiety were prone to have babies with low birth weights and premature births. And an alarming amount of families have to separate and break up due to being homeless. About 57% of families have to be separated as a result of being homeless. In this early on years, from 0 to 18 months, is mistrust versus trust. And during this stage, based on a mother being homeless, the child is already recognizing different signs as far as stress levels, inconsistency of things going on. So when this child is born, they're already born in a situation where there will be some mistrust. Either if they're born and their mother is unable to provide housing for herself and the child is placed with a family member, there may be that beginning stage of mistrust unless that mother is actually able to get housing and get a support system in place to be able to continually, make up for that situation and develop an ongoing process of building a relationship with her child. Other situations would be foster care. If that child is placed in foster care as a result of being homeless, they are already developing that mistrust, that disconnect from their mother. And it's a very crucial stage because the development of the child and their future is very important. The connection that they have, what they go through when they're in the mother's womb, is very, very important as far as developing. If these children are born addicted to drugs, then they will be victims of being, having to have educational problems, learning problems, behavioral problems. This is like a large number of kids that we see today as social workers that we work with. These kids tend to have other mental health diagnoses, and then they need this support and the help of just trying to get through of what wasn't given to them when they were babies. So that's why, to me, that mistrust versus trust in the Erikson's theory is very important. And if there was more research done and more support done for these women who are faced with becoming homeless, a lot of them do not choose to become homeless. Becoming homeless is a choice that they have to make because either they're in a domestic violence situation, or their home situation is not that great, or they're being kicked out. And once they become homeless and they either get pregnant while they're homeless or pregnant prior to being homeless, it's very hard for them to get housing and to get support. And if there could be enough services available to help this population, then we could definitely be able to make up for that trust versus mistrust part. It can definitely be a trusting situation where that child can grow up having a better outcome. But I feel like this population is such a huge growing population that is overlooked. And we're going to continue to see these children grow up in foster care or grow up living impoverished neighborhoods, and they're going to come and they're going to seek help. But a lot of the behaviors that they display as a result of what took place during the stages of when they were born. So I do believe Erikson's theory is definitely important, because if you cannot mend that, ongoing situation of that beginning stage, then that child will continually develop mistrust, and then it will continually go on, and then other behaviors and situations will occur. Also, another important thing is during that stage, infants, they tend to look towards their caregiver for food, for shelter, just to be there. And if this mom is so concerned with trying to find out where she's going to sleep tomorrow, if she's worried about if her child's going to be taken away from her, this child is just going to develop a mistrust. And if that is not taken care of in the next following stages, then we have a population of children that we're waiting too long to take care of, because this could be prevented in the beginning stages. And pregnant, or who was homeless and pregnant, using the Erikson's theory, we have to look at the whole picture as a whole, and we have to pretty much just try to support the mother, and try to look at the contributions of what made her homeless, and how can we pretty much help and support this mother so that she can continue to live a successful life. So trying to pretty much point out all of the good things that are going on in her life, and trying to support where we could pick up and develop that bond. Our goal is to definitely enhance the mother's parenting skills, and enhance the mom so that she could have better self-care, so then she can be able to then take care of her child and provide that bonding relationship with the child, what the child is actually needing, which is the trust, and being able to look at mom and know that she whenever that child is in need, that mom can actually provide that child with that need. And in order to do that, we definitely have to look at the mom and we have to encourage the mom and we have to support the mom. And by supporting the mom, again, we have to definitely educate her, teaching her on what prenatal care is about, how important prenatal care is, and the lack of prenatal care, what it can do to that child and the developmental stages. Also, providing that mom with mental health care, providing that mom with substance abuse care, just being able to educate that parent, because not all parents, mothers who are homeless are educated to know that this is what they need. Finding programs that support the growth of the mother, and then once that mother has a child, just being able to support them on an ongoing basis, as being able to develop that relationship and create that bond is really important, because it being the prenatal stage, the mom serves a very, very important, crucial role. And if the mom could understand and be educated on what's important to develop that bond with that child, then that child has the ability to have a better, successful life. And there are some programs that do offer that. We do need much more programs with that. But if we could help the parent, I think there will be better situations. And I think that homeless women would be more open to coming and seeking help if they're not being judged, if they don't show up on time for appointment, or if they're not being consistent. It's not that they don't care. It could be a situation that's actually going on, their life experience. And that's what we have to look at. What experience has caused this parent to be the way they are? So we can help support that experience by teaching them and enhancing them so that they could be better parents to their children. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.